Good morning. This is the time and place set for the regularly scheduled monthly meeting of the Taxicab Authority Board. It is Wednesday, August 20th, 2025. Time is 9:31. We're at the Nevada State Business Center, 330 West Sahara Avenue, Suite 100. I will call us to order, and the record should reflect that present are Vice Chair McGrath, Member Decker, Member Vasquez, and myself, Dan Reeser, Chair. And unless Member Weekly is online, she said he might be. Don't see him yet, so we'll see if he is able to join us or not. But we do have a quorum, and I will call us to order. And Vice Chair, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Having reviewed confirmations of receipt and affidavits of posting, it appears to me, Madam Secretary, that this matter has been properly noticed and posted in accordance with the open meeting law. Do you concur?
Yes.
That will take us to agenda item 2, which is the first public comment session for today pursuant to NRS Chapter 241. That is open meeting law. This matter is set on our agenda so that we may take comment from members of the public on matters within the jurisdiction of the board. We cannot take action on any of those matters brought to our attention, but we would welcome any comments from members of the public. Is there any member of the public present in the room in Las Vegas that would wish to provide public comment? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, is there anybody online who wishes to provide public comment?
No.
That will conclude our first public comment session, taking us to agenda item 3. This matter is on our agenda for the board to review the minutes of July 16, 2025. They've been provided to us in advance. Are there any additions, changes, or corrections desired of the minutes?
I'm sorry. The introduction.
Oh, yes. We'll take that right after this. Okay. I'll go back into public comment. Sorry.
Thank you.
My mistake.
No worries.
If there are no changes to the minutes, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I'm going to reopen public comment. Sorry, Administrator had a public comment he wanted to make.
Thank you, Chairman. So there's been some changes with the Taxicab Authority and the Nevada Transportation Authority. I have been selected by the Director's Office to run both agencies. Operations at the Nevada Transportation Authority, my job over at the Taxicab Authority hasn't changed. Along with that, our enforcement squads are going to be ran by one specific chief, and I've invited him here today to introduce him to the board and to the industry, Dominic Del Padre. I'll just let him give you a quick little who he is, and he just started this week, so I'm excited to have him running both of the agencies.
Good morning.
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 My name is Dominic Del Padre, as Park said, the chief, and I come from DPS. I did 20 years there, both at Highway Patrol and the training division. And prior to that, I was in the Air Force.
Prior to that, you were
I was in the Air Force.
Air Force. Thank you for your service.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, that's all.
My
Isn't that
apologies.
enough?
Okay. I will reclose agenda item 2, public comment. Takes us to agenda item 4, which is a matter set on our agenda regularly for industry discussion. It's an opportunity for members of the regulated community to provide to us any information about their operations or suggestions for matters that we should be undertaking I'll open up for any member of the industry who wish to address us.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, administrator, and staff. For the record, Cheryl Gibbons on behalf of C-Trip. The reason that I wanted to speak with you today is there's a matter that's very concerning to me that is before our sister agency, the NTA. It is known as Paradise Transportation, AKA the Boring Tunnel, AKA Tesla. What they are attempting to do is to operate what amounts to meterless taxis above ground because their boring tunnels won't be ready until about the year 2040. What they are proposing is to run over 100 vehicles at rates that they say are actually per capita rates, which would mean that it's a per head charge. Similar to the charter bus companies in town that perform per capita rates, 15 different people get on the bus, it may make 2 stops, it may make 15, and everybody pays it per price, regardless of whether you're riding together. They are proposing that if 3 people are at one station loop and want to go to another station loop or to the airport, that there will only be 1 fee charged so long as they're all going to the same location. So in fact, that is a taxi. It is not per capita. They would have to charge each individual that same rate. Their rates are in direct competition to Taxicab rates. Their map of their loop system, which is going to be going to and from loops and then loops to and from the airport. It is the exact same zone map that we used and worked on for years to develop our pilot program, which is now our flat rate zones, which we did to get rid of the long hauling issue, improve transparency with the riding public as to our rates. Their rates, if you're going 0 to 3 miles, are $5. If you're going 4 to 6 miles, it is $10. 12 miles, or excuse me, 6 miles or more, the rate is $12. And it states right on their tariff rate that as long as passengers are going to the same station or to the airport, that it will be 1 rate for all people that are riding in that vehicle. We thought the TNCs were going to be competition for us. This right here could be an industry killer. They are meterless taxis. They will not be paying the 25 cents to the Taxicab Authority. And they are in direct competition with us above ground, operating in the exact area that we worked so hard to get our flat rate zones in. And although I unfortunately will be out of town, the LOA has filed their 2nd petition for leave to intervene in this matter. All petitions for leave to intervene were denied by the NTA, stating that staff would go ahead and answer all of the questions pertaining to the deficiencies in the application. The LOA has since filed an additional petition to leave for leave to intervene. I unfortunately will be out of town, so I won't be able to attend the 28th hearing, which is when we are guessing it will be on the agenda, as the NTA has not yet published their agenda for the 28th hearing. I am asking the Taxicab Authority as an agency to have representation there, to represent the cabs in this matter as an industry and what this is going to do to compete with our industry. And I'm asking all of the members of the industry to participate in this, because we have to show that we believe that we have a direct and substantial interest in this, and it is not going to be compensable for this company. They can turn around and flip that certificate, or turn around and 6 months down the road say 100 plus cars isn't going to be compensable for us. We need to get more cars and change our rates. And once they're in the door, it's almost impossible to stop that flow. Thank you for your time this morning.
Questions?
No.
You want to wait till
I was going to
listen to all of them? Okay.
I will chime in as well. Desiree Dante on behalf of Lucky Western and Nellis Cab. We too will be filing the PLI to intervene. We will be present at the meeting and hope we get an opportunity to speak. Besides what Cheryl just said, 104 more vehicles in that congested little area, it's going to be impossible. So I confer with everything Cheryl said, and we too will be present and hope to get an opportunity to speak at the meeting at the end of the month.
Mario Lacascio, Deluxe Taxis, we did the same thing. We already filed actually, and we'll be at the meeting. And just to point out, 15 years ago, we had the best system in the industry. Even the black cabbies in England remodeling our system where we put medallions out towards the busy times, we took them back. In today's world, this would destroy the industry to zero. I mean, we wouldn't survive it. We already have people that drive 12 hours and barely paying their bills. This would take another 20, 35%. How are we going to get drivers? And we're already in that situation of struggling for drivers. This is a complete disaster if they approve it. For TA, for the industry of cab world, drivers, I mean, I don't know what the goal is. They're trying to just destroy the industry of cab and limos and buses.
Mike Malloy with ACAB Taxi. We're also filing a joiner to join our colleagues and hopefully representing the industry well. And we're against it. I mean, honestly, I don't see why we need 104 vehicles traveling underground, possibly more, is going to take away drivers, riders, revenue from our company, from this industry, and from the Taxicab Authority. And we'll be there as well.
Michael Bale in Taxi Management. Agree with all my colleagues. I had a whole thing written up, but Cheryl's presentation was a lot better than the one I was going to get. So, Cheryl's. But we totally agree. This would be very detrimental to our industry.
Questions?
No. So these are above ground.
Yes, sir.
And is there an actual petition that's been filed with the NTA?
They
What
filed their application back, I believe, in December, and then the application, there were other things that they filed afterwards. I did ask for the public records on the matter and received their application. I was surprised actually that the NTA responded as timely as they did to get me that request. And I have not had the opportunity, since I just got that information on Monday, to go through their application. But it's our belief that it's going to be heard on the 28th, this coming Wednesday. They were supposed to wait and be able to do this underground once the boring tunnels were complete. But the boring tunnels aren't going to be complete until the year 2040, possibly. So this is a way to generate revenue. Not that Tesla, necessarily needs the revenue, but, you're looking at over 100 vehicles that are going to have drivers that are going to be transporting people that ordinarily would be taking a cab, whether it be from one loop station to another. And frankly, they're talking about serving the airport, and I don't know that they've been given authority to serve Harry Reid International Airport. And where are they going to stage? Where are they going to have their vehicles picking up? Where, Uber and Lyft pick up? I mean, none of this is actually in the application. It's all just let us have this and we'll figure it out as we go along.
I have a question. Mm-hmm. Does the LOA feel that the NTA is the appropriate venue, the appropriate agency to issue a license, or that the application should be before this board?
I can give you my opinion, J.D. Decker. My opinion is that it should be before the Taxicab Authority, for a number of reasons. One, the financial information that has to be provided would be more complete and more detailed. What is required before this agency to actually file for a certificate of public convenience and necessity and be granted one is far more stringent and strict than those rules at the NTA. And I also believe that the staff that is on the TAs, on the Taxicab Authority, would be better suited to digest the information that would be presented in the application versus the NTA staff. That is my personal opinion, not that of the LOA.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, it was just the grin on your face.
Would you like Member Vasquez to ask his questions while you're
Yeah.
composing your thoughts? If he
Yeah.
has any?
Yeah, you can ask it.
Do you have any questions?
Cheryl, just to follow up on the boring company and the underground tunnels, these are all just expansions until where they get to their wannabe is 2040 estimated? Because they're already operating.
Right. Once the entire loop system will be complete by 2040 is what they're saying. All of it will be complete by then. But for them to want to run these vehicles above ground, it amounts to a meterless taxi. That's all it is. For want of a better phrase, a gypsy cab.
So
It's a good thing I'm going to be out of town next week, isn't it, Gene?
I think you should normalize.
A portion of the boring is done.
Yes,
Convention.
From
Yep.
where to where?
the convention center area is done.
They opened the encore,
Resort
Yeah.
that's as far
Yeah,
as it
resort
goes.
But you're all talking at once, one person at a time, Cheryl.
Yeah, well, Resorts World, the convention center,
But nothing connecting there.
no.
Or property to property.
They are as far as the encore.
Pardon?
That, they went as far as the encore. They opened up 3-4 weeks ago. It's still not really any transit in there.
The map that they attach to the application is, as you can see, is really, really difficult to see, but it pretty much is every point and place along the Golden Triangle, the airport, the Strip, and downtown.
So if the NTA were to take action, and if your interpretation of the law is correct, that the NTA doesn't have jurisdiction, you would have standing to bring a lawsuit?
Well, I believe you would have to appeal it to district court. Our appellate body used to be the NTA, and now, we got rid of that, and we'd have to go to district court. But the NTA's stance on this is that since it is special service per capita, then it actually would go before the NTA. But based on what is within the application, it is not special service. And it is not per capita. Per capita is a per head rate. They could probably get away with saying it's actually per capita if every single person riding that was going from one loop to the next loop was charged the individual rate. But it says, right on their rates that all passengers must have the same station destination within the Las Vegas loop in order to be eligible to ride together. So it's one fare.
So
And
you-
they've got listed in here, Harry Reid Airport, to or from a Vegas loop station, or a Vegas loop station to a Vegas loop station. So they put in their application that they're going to be operating at Harry Reid Airport.
So I think the short answer to my question is yes, you think you would have grounds for a lawsuit.
My personal opinion, sir, yes.
Can you direct me to any statute or regulation in our jurisdiction that allows us to serve as a lobbyist for the industry?
As the board, I would not know what the law or regulation would be. I do not believe that the board themselves necessarily has that authority, but I believe an agency that represents the interests of the riding public to foster sound economic conditions within our industry would have standing. And the Taxicab Authority's position and the board's position is to foster sound economic conditions within the taxicab industry. And that economic condition would be the certificate holders, the drivers, and the riding public.
Assume, Ms. Rushton, you have an answer to my question?
Yes, sir. For the record, Kimberly Maxon Rushton with the law firm Cooper Levinson, appearing on behalf of the Livery Operators Association. Chair, in direct response to your question, I believe that this body can authorize or order your administrator to take action specific to this matter. And what I mean by that is you are tasked with the obligation, as Cheryl said, to oversee the industry and ensure its well-being. You now have heard complaints from almost every carrier about the fact that this will negatively and adversely impact them. What we would recommend is that you direct the administrator to communicate to the NTA that you believe, the board, that this is a concern and that it could be dangerously close to a meterless taxi, and that you'd ask the NTA to consider the comments of the taxicab industry during any hearing that they may have on this matter. That's, in direct response to your other question, Chair Reeser, is that if we're denied the PLTI, if we're denied the action of interveners, we don't have standing to pursue a petition for judicial review. They've not allowed us to exhaust our administrative remedies because even though the law specifically says if you're similarly situated carriers operating in the same geographic area, there's an automatic presumption that you have a direct and substantial interest. That doesn't matter. That's gone out the window, and we think likely that they will deny the PLTI. So our only authority would be to speak as an open oral protestant at the time of the hearing.
Mr. Chair.
Well,
Sorry. Go ahead.
hold on, one quick question, just because you said somebody said something a few minutes ago, you said something different. Has the petition to intervene been denied? Or you're saying you filed the next one, a subsequent one, and that one hasn't been adjudicated?
The first one was denied. It was timely filed and denied.
What was the basis of the denial?
That staff can do the job, that the issues and the arguments that were proffered therein, that staff can adequately address.
Which staff?
The NTA staff.
Okay.
And that, again, I would respectfully submit is contrary to the regulatory authority, which says direct and substantial interest shall be granted or shall be presumed if the carriers operate in the same geographic area performing the same services. Members of the LOA do have that authority, so therefore they would automatically be in. They were denied. So we filed under the NTA's authority. You can file as a protestant and ask that at a hearing you be recognized as an intervener. So that's what we filed earlier this week. A protestant, a renewed request to be recognized as the PLTI or an untimely PLTI considered at the hearing.
Sorry. And was the original petition filed by the LOI, or was it filed by one of the individual entities?
There were a number, yes, sir, both. There were the LOA filed one, and then a number of NTA certificated carriers filed one as well.
I know some of the entities, but I don't know the exact structure. We know the structure of the ones before us in terms of the Taxicab authority. But any of those entities have NTA licenses?
Yes, sir.
And did they file?
Yes, sir.
And those were denied
Yes,
also?
sir.
So do you have or don't you have protesting status?
Protestant status is automatic.
That's what I thought.
Yes, sir.
So you do have a seat at the table, as it were, to make comment.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is it your interpretation under the NTA's statute, Ms. Rushton, that the denial of a petition for intervention, if done in an abuse of discretion, cannot be taken as a 233B petition for judicial review?
I would always file it that way first.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And would you not also have Chapter 30 authority? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So there's remedy.
There is. And the biggest, and I will just be candid with the board, the biggest issue here is the fact that, as Cheryl indicated, under your statutory scheme, in order to obtain a CPCN, you have to show that a need exists for the service. Similarly, under the NTAs, you have to show that a market exists for the proposed service. They have no market. Their market says there's clearly a gap in the service between Las Vegas Boulevard and Reed Airport, and we intend to fill that gap. That's their market. Every other carrier had to come in with substantial quantitative information and demonstrate the fact that there was a market. No market here.
I do. So one of the problems with a request that the board direct the administrator to represent the agency is that the administrator has just informed us that he is managing both agencies and has an equal and separate obligation to the NTA. Does that concern the LOA that the interests of the Taxicab Authority may not be independently represented?
Can I ask you to just make one final slight change?
Sure.
I don't really care about the LOA's position. I want to know the position of the certificate holder.
Okay.
The LOA may not be entitled to have standing at all as an association. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I guess I'm not referring to it in a legal sense.
Okay.
I'm referring it to in a colloquial sense in that it represents
Yeah.
the aggregate of certificate holders.
I have a question. I just asked legal if I could ask. Mario Lacache,
I
the
don't
last
think
thing. Huh?
in this role.
Well, you said to bring up a statute. Under the statute, if a certificate holder cannot be infringed by another certificate holder without coming up to the board, since they're mimicking everything a taxi is doing, how do they get around that statute? I mean, I remember the last time we were here with Brent Carson tried his 32 medallions. Yes,
20,
exactly.
but
20.
25.
All right, I like to exaggerate, but he did, you guys grind him to, to where it was zero. And these folks, the Paradise Company here is coming, trying to bypass and circle all of that. And again, they're doing everything a taxi's doing. There's nothing that they're doing different than a cab does not. Except They're gonna go and not follow TA rules. They're not gonna charge trips and get the TA. They're not gonna go by a meter. They're going, all of the above. So how's that not fall under that statute?
Mike Malloy from ACAB Taxi. And what's to stop the SUVs that we're hearing about downtown? These black SUVs, these gypsy cabs are doing the exact same thing, applying for a license and then doing it legally and charging whatever they want. This opens up sets a bad precedent.
In response to your question, Member Decker, for the record, Kimberly Maxim Russian, we're in a tough position. I mean, normally, as you have seen over the past year, Administrator Park has done everything in his power to help this industry get back on track. The approval of the pilot program, the surcharges, all of those things. He's in an administrative position over there. Truthfully, the deputy commissioner doesn't have much input on an application matter and everything other than just the initial filing to ensure that it's complete. So we are in a tough position because normally we would have done a formal request to this body to say, please direct the administrator to advise the NTA of the impact that this will have. We now have a record. I think that we can submit that to the NTA as well and say that, every cab company got up and expressed a direct and substantial interest in the fact that this could adversely and unreasonably affect them. And I think that that carries weight too.
So to that point, I have a question for Dag Feely. I don't think we can take any action on this matter.
I was
Yeah, so
getting
the-
myself
the
prepared
relief-
to jump in.
The relief you're asking for could only be granted today if an application or request had been made and went on agenda. You're asking us to take action on a non-agenda item. So I appreciate the request. I'm not sure the request is one we could perform, even if it had been in the right posture before us. And I don't, I guess the only other thing is there anybody online who wants to address us on this point? Because I don't want to not have a fulsome public record that the certificate holder could provide to the NTA. No. Any other questions? So I'm just going to say I think there is a potentially serious question as to whether the sister agency has jurisdiction here or we have jurisdiction here. Typically, such matters are not handled by courts, but by the governor's office or some other administrator. There are rare instances in Nevada, modern Nevada times, of agencies suing each other over jurisdiction. It just doesn't typically happen. Private parties bring those cases to adjudicate jurisdiction. But I appreciate the concerns that are expressed, and I guess as one member of the board, I would suggest that the NTA carefully consider whether it's granting an application that's in our jurisdiction as opposed to in their jurisdiction, and that be articulated clearly on any public record that is made before that agency, so that if they're creating precedent, we understand what that precedent is in administering our statutes. But that's just my one board member's thoughts. Any other?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
I have one more.
Is there any other exciting industry news that we should know?
I just have one thing. My name is Desiree Dante on behalf of Lucky Western and Nellis Cab. I just have something to say regarding the pilot program that will be heard later today. I just want to reiterate what Mr. Awad said at the last meeting. It's a little redundant to have each company file their own application to run the exact same pilot program. I think it makes the most sense if the pilot program is going to be ran, that any company that wants to participate should be granted that authority.
Good morning, George Bowden. Yeah. I just wanted to bring up a broken record, that the illegal operator that's still happening. There's the number of illegal operators, it continues to get worse. I'm happy to hear it sounds like there's a new sheriff in town. Perhaps that's going to help. That's as we talk to the Taxicab Authority, it's basically that their hands are kind of tied because of the way the laws are written, that there's staffing issues, the fact that the illegal operators know what all the Taxicab Authority agents look like, or the NTA officers look like. And I feel like, and then it's that the fact that the illegal operators know what they look like, we should use to our advantage. So if we can't sting them, we can at least run them off. So having a presence, if we have enough TA staff to write up cars for service engine lights being on and all the things that they do, we need to have a presence downtown to run these people off. Now, when you run them off, they have to go someplace else. Well, there's really no place else that's as target rich for rides as downtown. They're not going to go to a casino. The doorman's going to run. They're not going to allow them to solicit off the cab stand. They could go to some casinos that don't have doormen, but again, that's not very target rich like downtown would be. They're not going to go to the airport. So downtown is the spot where these people are all going. So I think a presence downtown, and I'm not saying that they're not doing that. Maybe they're doing it now, but we continue to see our drivers are taking pictures of illegal operators just over and over and over. And if we can't arrest them, at least run them out of downtown. If we make it to where they can't make a profit being down there and they have to go sit someplace else, it's going to be much harder for them to find rides. It is blatant. I mean, they basically have a starter that is downtown. It is soliciting the rides and then calling the cars up. It's a business, an actual business. It's crazy. The second part of it is that my understanding from talking, my general manager talking to the administrator, is that it's pretty tough to sting these guys because the way the law is written. And that was kind of news to me. The TNCs have been around for 10 years now, 5 legislative sessions. If in fact the law is written poorly so that we can't enforce it, why haven't we changed that? I don't think, while Uber and Lyft are not going to go out and enforce this because they like the fact that illegal operators are doing that because they're not stealing TNC rides, they're stealing our rides. There's no way they could defend us changing the law to make it easier to get illegal operators. This doesn't help anybody. So I would think that we should be able to make the law so it's easier to enforce, but I've never really heard that. And I just wanted to bring that up, that we should be having workshops about what that is. And if the TA doesn't want to go change the law, then us as an industry should be going up at the next session. It's 2 years away, but we should be going up there with their help and telling us what the law needs to say so that they can go out and enforce this. Again, because I don't know the legalities of why it's so difficult to get them. It's illegal for a cab driver to solicit, a limousine driver to solicit, PNC to solicit. Now, because they're illegal operators, maybe it's not illegal for them to solicit because they don't have a certificate. I don't know what it is, but there has to be a way around this to make this so. My understanding of the TA is that unless they themselves are solicited, they can't do it. They can see it happening, but it has to happen to them. And again, to me, that seems like, well, we need to fix that. And I've just never heard that before. So I wanted to bring that up. We need to be doing something about this. I mean, we're getting it from all sides. Paradise Transportation. I mean, it's just endless. And while it hurts our business, it hurts the TA because they're cab rides. And the morale of the drivers. I mean, the drivers are just like, oh my Lord, does anybody care at all? They can complain and nothing seems to happen. So that's it.
Questions? No. Questions?
Which statute is it? Is it the TA statute or is it the criminal statute? Which one is
It? I have no idea. That's
okay. And it's not 2 years, by the way. You got about a year to be
before
submitting bills to the LCB for approval as a BDR. So just FYI, you only got a year.
Yeah, to work with whoever the authorities are.
So
with the new
who
sheriff.
told you it was the statute? Was it TA or
Well,
was it?
we'd heard from the TA staff that it's a complicated situation, there are rules in order to sting about solicitation and again, I think this is a better question for them, but I just wanted to bring it to the attention that we as an industry, with the help of the agency, we don't want to go up and write the law and the agency say, well, that makes it harder. We need the people that are going to enforce the law to be helping us write the law so they can do their job.
Dan,
Okay.
I would be interested in the specifics of what the agency's telling you, because as someone who used to enforce that law as the interim administrator of the Taxicab Authority, I've never heard that before, that it was difficult to enforce. In fact, the Taxicab Authority and the NTA, theoretically, as far as I know, have been enforcing UPTs for years. So I'm interested to know specifically what part of it would be difficult, if that's available.
And I apologize because I am repeating to you hearsay because I was not at that meeting.
Gotcha.
With my general manager. So again, I just know it's a problem and I understand that the Taxicab Authority has a lot of issues, which is staffing, rules, a lot of different things. And I just think that we need as an industry to be working together to make that easier for them, to make that law as easy as we can make it. And the last part is the idea that one of the difficulties, which has been expressed multiple times, is that illegal operators know what everybody looks like. We should use that to our advantage. Run them out of downtown. There needs to be a presence down there. Just run them out of there. Just do it over and over and over until it's gone. We have staff, so have them patrol down there. Thank you.
So before you leave,
Yes.
I want to acknowledge that you have shared with me on a couple of occasions evidence on this matter. I also want to share with you that I have met with the director on this very matter, and I'm not going to share anything about that in a public hearing other than to say that he has agreed that this is an issue that he needs to help us address.
Thank you.
But how it's going to be addressed, I'm not going to discuss.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Michael Ballin for Taxi Management. Pretty much the same thing that Desiree brought up. If you guys do approve the Uber integration, our intent is to pilot both curb and captain system. As you know, we own 7 taxi cab companies, and to pilot each one separately just does seem like a little overkill. So it seems like our opinion is that it should be just opened up to the entire industry, anybody that wants to participate. Thank you.
And that comment and Desiree's comment will incorporate by reference into agenda item 9. Any other industry discussion under agenda item 4? Great. That takes us to agenda item 5, which is the administrator's status report to us on the Desert Cab application to adjust taxi charges to include a 50-cent pass-through on software license charges.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, I'm just going to defer to the hearing officer that I appointed and let her give any updates. Great.
Good morning, board. Everything's going fairly smoothly. We're still on board for the hearing to go forward September 17, 18, and 19. We did just receive a second amended application from the applicant. That the notice is going out in the paper early Friday. We did have a motion to compel. I issued an order. There's a motion for reconsideration outstanding with an opposition that I have not had a chance to look at yet.
Anything else? Any questions?
What's newly alleged in the second amended petition?
Basically, they are incorporating the testimony of 3 or 4 people to conform the application to the evidence that's been presented. So I don't know specifically what without reading those deposition transcripts.
Having read it, Vice Chair, it's a couple of paragraphs that just incorporate pre-filed testimony as the factual allegations of the second amended and a request to conform proof. So it's an interesting way of filing a pleading to That's what it is.
Again, I did just be a net result just on the
Yeah.
deposition.
Have you sent us the second amended petition yet? I know we're getting
Yes.
as it goes, but,
Yes, I would be on Monday,
okay,
Tuesday, Friday or Monday.
all right. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss it or
No,
something.
we did not.
Okay.
The only other thing, which I think you just alluded to, is that the board members have been receiving pre-filed testimony in advance so that we don't have to read it all at one time. Thank you.
What are the, so we're August 20th, my mom and my daughter's birthday. It's on the record. That I remember. So what
Doesn't
doesn't help.
It doesn't constitute sending a card.
I signed a card. What deadlines are coming up?
The only ones offhand that I can think about are the briefs, I believe September 5th, somewhere around then.
Discovery cut?
It's come and gone. That was July 31st.
Discovery cutoff has already occurred.
Yes,
Somebody produced the settlement agreement?
haven't heard of any settlement.
Those are my thoughts. I'm consistent.
There have been no experts designated.
Well, is there a deadline set for submission of exhibits? By the
Yes, I
parties.
believe that September 5th also.
Okay,
Just without having the order in front of me, I apologize.
so I think we'll see, the intent was of the order that I read, was that we would see in advance proposed exhibits. And we would have the testimony, the direct testimony in our hands.
That is the goal.
Other questions? Thank you, Ms. Webb, Administrator. That takes us to agenda item 6, which is a public hearing on the application for a pilot program by We'll see Blue Cab and Henderson Taxi. I want to remind the board of the posture of this matter. We heard this matter last month. We issued an order in early August, I think the 8th maybe. The application was granted, subject to the satisfaction of 6 compliance items to our, am I right about August 8th?
Yeah, that, the order's in the.
Oh, it is? Okay, I'm sorry. So what is before us is to determine if those compliance items have been satisfied to our, our discretion to allow them, the pilot program to go forward on September 1st. We did receive 3 petitions for leave to intervene. Nevada Yellow, Star, New Cab Taxi Management on August 25. August 8th. On August 7, ACAB. And on August 8th, Virgin Valley and Desert Cab. So before we proceed to go through the compliance items, I think we need to dispose of the petitions for leave to intervene.
Kimberly, I'm sorry.
Huh?
Were those interventions for the deluxe number 9?
Yes. Oh, these are on, oh, okay. Thank you. You are correct. They are not on this matter. They're on the other matter. Okay. So we don't need to resolve late filing petitions. So I was concerned about, it just says, the pleadings just say pilot program, so. Break all of that discussion, so we're here to hear about satisfaction of the compliance items. This question.
Good morning, members of the board. For the record, I'm Kimberly Maxon Rushton with the law firm Cooper Levinson, appearing on behalf of Z-Trip, known to the authority as Little C Blue Cab and Henderson Taxi. As noted by Chair Reeser, this is the continuation of the application hearing for the proposed pilot program, which would allow the respective companies to utilize a TNC app for the purposes of hailing a taxi. As noted, there were several compliance items that the company was asked to meet and demonstrate. If it's acceptable to the chair and the board, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Mr. Bill George. He's got a presentation specific to those compliance items and how the program today, what we think of how it will work. And so again, Chair, with your permission, may we present that?
Take it away.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to be back here again. As Kimberly mentioned, Bill George, Chairman, CEO of Z-Trip. You sent us away with a litany of items for homework, and proud to come back to you today and tell you they have all been met with. And if you will bear with me, I'd like to walk through them with you. I'm going to leave the first slide on there with some trip information to the end to underscore the importance of this. But as we walk through the, start from the beginning there. We have the presentation live behind you and on the.
Is it the same as?
For the most part, a little prettier up on the screen.
Yeah, you can get the technology.
So to remind everybody, the idea behind this is to increase the amount of trips that are offered to the taxi cab industry. If you go through what we've got, and this is live in several other cities where we have partnered with Uber, when customers that are Uber customers request a trip, they will have an option in their settings to allow a taxi cab to service their trip. So it would just be under the UberX setting. So a customer has opted in, number one, an Uber customer has opted in to say, as you're matching my trip, that I will accept a taxi in response to that. So that's the first screen that you see there of what it would look like. You go ahead and order a trip, and you will see that you're paired with the cab. It will give you the cab number, the driver's name, their rating, and you know who's coming to pick you up. On the next slide, you will see that it's a standard. If any of you are familiar with using the Uber app, you'll choose UberX. You'll see what your fare is up front. They'll tell you how far it is. You can track the vehicle's progress there. And then you'll see in the taxi settings, it gives you specifically that you'll see the price up front. You'll pay and tip in the Uber app. You'll ride with a licensed taxi driver. You'll get a similar class of vehicle that was UberX, and screenings and features may vary. But you're opting in to having the taxi cab take care of the trip. So there's full transparency up front to the rider. So what the order flow is, once that pairing is made, behind the scenes, somebody requests an UberX. The taxi cab is the closest vehicle. So it will then integrate with our tech, and we will then send it to our driver. The driver will have an opportunity to see the trip, see what the trip will pay, and then they can accept or reject that trip. So the driver, once again, has full transparency and the ability to accept or reject that trip. Next slide shows you what the driver will see, and this is our new technology that we piloted the beginning July, and been working tirelessly with the TA staff. So on the driver, they've got their tablet in their vehicle. They see that a trip offer comes up.
Is that the driver experience?
Yes. The driver will have the opportunity to see this trip come up. They can accept the trip, and it will populate with what their fare information is. So if you see on the second page, driver experience in vehicle, this trip is going to be offered to him or her for $28.50. So the driver can say, okay, I see where the pickup point is, where the drop-off point is. I'm going to be paid $28.50 for this trip. I decided to accept it. Driver then goes to the pickup location for the trip, onboards the customer. This is the new devices that we've installed, and it's a significant investment, but all 511 of our vehicles have this new backseat device. So if you're familiar now, there's simply just a credit card machine there. This is a multifunction device that allows you to pay by credit card, to tap and pay. If you have an account, you can do that, but it also has the ability to message. And so in addition to delivering the messages that were part of the order, we'll have other messages that can come in here. So if you look at this, in the rider experience in vehicle, the first thing is that it will welcome them aboard, and it also, they can select their language. So for all the international tours, you can default to English, but you can select, I think, 8 different languages that you can see your message in. Once you select your language, it will then go ahead and deliver what is under the second page of rider experience in vehicle, the message that they requested. It will have the Uber logo, the Z-Trip logo. It will say your trip was booked through Uber. Your trip cost is available in your Uber app. Las Vegas Taxicab Authority rates do not apply to this trip. That screen will stay static throughout the duration of that passenger's trip. In addition, if you go to, we'll go in a few slides, I'll show you some other things we can do with this technology, but that is one of the direct requirements of the order. The next was to talk about how passenger drop-offs and passenger pickups take place. For passenger drop-offs, all drop-offs will take place in the currently established taxicab approved locations. So if you take outside of the strip in the airport, everything else would take place within, wherever the passenger directs. If you're going to a residence, a hospital, this building, the passenger will always direct you into where you're going, and it'll be in that normal place. If you're on a hotel property or a venue, the taxicab driver will drop that trip off at wherever a taxicab is authorized to drop off. And to anyone at the venue, it just appears to be a regular trip. During the pilot period, because it is a short window, we are not going to do anything with the airport. We're going to leave that off where this program will be geofenced out. So if the customer is getting picked up, an UberX customer is requesting service to or from the airport, those trips will not be offered to taxicabs. That gives us some time to work with the airport and continue to work with the board on the best way to manage that. There's a variety of issues that come in with the airport, as you heard earlier today, with parking and staging and things like that. So for a shortened time period for the pilot, it just didn't make sense to try and go through all that.
So we don't need to worry about signage at the airport that would
Correct.
change the zone pricing.
Right. So and our plan is obviously to incorporate that at a later date if you allow this pilot to go forward, but we will come back to you with in probably several months with how that should work. After
7 months or several?
Several after consultation with the airport. On passenger pickup, on everything except for the certain strip hotels and venues, passenger pickup will take place in the location that a TNC or taxi would pick up. So if you think outside of the strip in the airport, any other place, if it's a hospital, a school, a residence, we're going to pick up the same place in front of the residence and where the customer indicated they would be. If it is at a certain strip property, then the pickup place will take place where the TNC would be picking up. So the driver will pick up in that location. Vehicles that are in the cab lines, the cab queues at certain of these hotels will be able to pull out of the queue to go around to pick up that trip. So this stops the problem of the driver pulling up in front of somebody that's been queued and they come from position 4 to position 1 and pick up a trip. So they're going over to the TNC area to pick up that trip.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
So if I am a cab driver and I haven't yet been sent the signal that I could pick up an Uber booked trip, I'm in the queue, I'm not going to pick up the ride there. I'm going to get out of the queue and go to the TNC.
Correct.
Correct.
And that's why if you look at the bottom where we have geofence locations, there's certain queues that drivers cannot get out of because they're in tunnels or they're fenced off and things like that. So during this initial period, we will geofence off those areas, not from the cabs, but just from the cabs that are actually in the queue. They won't be offered that trip. So if you're at the Rio and you're in the queue and you're fifth up, you're able to get out of the queue and go around to where the TNC pickup is. If you're in the Bellagio tunnel, you can't physically get out of there. So you won't be offered that trip.
So you're going to geofence off the tunnel.
Correct. And
Or any other place where
you can't exit.
you couldn't maneuver. Okay.
And when you go to the next screen, the customizable screen, so the message will always be in the screen in the center part, displayed in the language that the customer defaulted to. Then we also have the ability to do other advertisements. We have a QR code that if you want to book, your convention, it can go take you directly to the Convention Visitors Bureau. We can promote all kinds of messages. We can do Amber Alerts on here, all kinds of things that the technology allows us to do. You asked us how we were going to communicate with the different venues and hotel properties. Attached under communicating with hotel partners is a sample letter that we will go ahead and our staff will meet with each property. We will send a letter to them, attempt to meet with the general manager, but definitely the staff that monitor security or valet that would monitor those areas to let them know what is going on during the pilot period. So if they see taxi cabs picking up in the TNC area, they're aware of that. And lastly, you asked us about testing, proud to report, and testing is ongoing on. It's been going on. Today, we have completed over 300 test trips. And we've worked out some bugs. We've tracked over 150 data points, and we're having great success with it. We are ready to go with this. And I will give some exciting news for the industry. As I've stressed all along, that once this pilot is in and we've got the results, that the TA is satisfied, that we've addressed all, again, with real data, that we've addressed all the issues. There was a mistake made the other day where they left the portal open for 15 minutes as we were sending it to the test cars. 200 trips were queued. 200 trips in 15 minutes. And we had to reroute them back to Uber cars, but it gives you the potential of what we were talking about. And that's what I'd like to go back and kind of close out with. If you go to our first page where we talked about what's happened with the industry, this is something that, as someone new to the market that has never had the luxury of having such a tourism draw that as Las Vegas has, and as of today, 39 markets. We closed on Clearwater, Florida on Monday. When you look at this number, at its peak, taxi cabs in Las Vegas did around 26 million trips. This year, we're on target to do about 12 million trips. TNCs, to the available data, are going to do around 67 million trips in the same area. So if you put them together, that's 79 million trips. So what happened there? All of a sudden, I mean, it's not like they took all the cab trips. What they did was they created business. Las Vegas visitors have not increased that much. What they did was they made it available to everybody that reliable transportation, whether you're in Henderson or Green Valley or you're in any of the areas out there at Red Rock, any of these places, now they can get a vehicle. And they created more business. And it shows you that supply will always beget demand. And that's something we know in the business. The key to this pilot is, especially with the lease program, we will now have drivers leaving their homes in Summerlin, flipping on their meter and be offered trips through the Uber app that people didn't even think. They wouldn't bother to call a cab. Quite frankly, the cab wouldn't go after them to get it. But now we'll be able to take advantage of those trips. And of the 79 million trips, they're back in play for the cab business. This is the technology that gets us there. It will increase driver income. It helps offset things that are beyond our control. And eventually, it's what gets this industry healthy again. So it's really probably the most important decision in the 8 months that I've been coming to this, the most important decision the board has to make. But we're excited. I think we've addressed every concern you have. From a consumer standpoint, from the driver standpoint, from the venue, everybody's been addressed, and it's great for all the stakeholders.
Questions?
No. Can I participate? Because I wasn't here last time. Is this just a continuation of that last hearing? So I don't know if I can participate. Just, I guess I should ask.
I believe you can.
Okay.
But I don't know, do you know the underlying, oh, you mean because you weren't here last time? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just can't reopen the underlying application.
Right.
Dan, I have a question. I don't know if this is appropriate.
It's not a contested, well, it is maybe theoretically a contested case, but
Right.
yeah.
I think the other certificate holders made a point in that the pilot might be better served if it was open to all the companies without individual applications.
Say that again.
That the pilot might be better served if it was open to any company that wanted to participate without the individual applications. If we're approving the pilot overall, then it might make sense that the companies can participate as they want, as opposed to approving the pilot and then each participant individually.
I believe, I can be corrected by either council. I believe that horse is already out of the bound because we granted this application and there wasn't people at the table saying, I want to participate. There were people saying, I don't know, this, that, or the other. It is a pilot program for 30 days. I think if we've basically entered an order saying it's approved, if you can show us that you have satisfied these 6 conditions to our satisfaction. I think there's not a reconsideration or anything. I'm troubled by reopening the matter.
That's what I was trying to.
And Mr. Chairman, because I could,
What, who,
Ryan Waddle on behalf of interveners Lucky Western and Ellis. At the previous hearing, we did state on the record that we were interested in it for our application. We were interested in joining the application.
understood, but the order that we entered was for this company to do the pilot. So I get what was before us. I'm just simply saying we didn't open it up to all companies.
Mr. Chairman, one thing I meant to request when I was presenting, and I know we talked about it after the last meeting. If you do approve this, it was a 30-day pilot, which puts the pilot ending before the next board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Could we extend the 30 days to at least one day after the board meeting? Because it doesn't make a lot of sense. We're having great success to shut it down on September 30th and then come back and ask for approval again. And so we go dark for 15 days. I think you'll have data and be able to make that decision, but I'd hate to have us in that void of 15 days or 6. I haven't looked at the calendar when the October meeting's going to be, but if we could extend at least through one day past the meeting or to the day of the meeting.
So you're saying tack on
For 15 days or whatever that date would be.
Let's first go through and see if we can satisfy all the conditions first. Because that's an esoteric question until we've satisfied. The first one was, Administrator, you were going to clarify any governmental objections to the policy where we would be allowing during the pilot theoretically rates that are not fully regulated by us. Can you report to us what you learned through your efforts?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I have been in contact with the director's office throughout this process, going all the way back to March. And I also know that the director has had a meeting with the governor. I also know that the director's office has been in contact with the strip corridor in the LVSCA. I always get those wrong, the convention center. They're all aware of it and have not had any issues brought to me by any of them.
Questions on compliance item A? Compliance item B is there must be clarification of treatment by the venues. And applicant has to present a plan of how their participating venues are going to manage participation by the taxi cabs compared to metered taxis, and provide an approach for understanding of how major venues, hotels, resorts, airport intend to handle the pilot. We've received information just now on that. Are there any questions on compliance item B? Sorry, no. Compliance item C is customer signage, clear notice, transparency for the riders, both at the booking and in the vehicles. And we also discussed whether there needed to be signage at venues. It appears to me that the main venue issue was the airport. And that based on the information given us now, it would appear that we don't have to worry about conflicting issues related to zone pricing. And I think that's a good solution. That frankly was one of my main concerns, was complaints about, I thought I got the zone price and I didn't get. Does anybody, any member of the board have questions or concerns on whether the customer signage is clear and transparent? No? D was clarification on zone pricing. I think we've clarified that. Any questions on the zone pricing condition? No. Sir. We did not require a 2-week testing phase. You were going to have to submit to us a justification for not doing it. It sounds like you did it, correct?
And ongoing, yes.
Yeah.
So 300 as of yesterday, or a little over 300 as of yesterday.
Any questions on compliance item E? No. Last compliance item is if they're all met by the time of this meeting or in a continued meeting, then we may consider allowing a 30-day pilot program commencing September 1 and ending September 30th. So I would submit, unless other board members or the administrator disagrees, that the compliance items have been satisfied and that, or first say, we have received evidence on the applicant's views of how they satisfy those. It's up to us now to determine if we find that adequate. And then I guess there's a request to modify the pilot program by a couple of weeks. I just have one question on modifying the time period that you've requested. If we extend it to end after the next, say within 72 hours after the next board meeting or something like that, so that there's an actual end date, what are you really expecting to be able to produce data-wise for us at the next board meeting?
Well, we can show you actual, as detailed as you want. And I think both Director and Mr. Mel will tell you, they've had complete, probably unprecedented transparency into our system. They have logins, so they have live ability to go in at any time, but we're going to generate reports. So there's 150 data points. I wouldn't want to inundate you with that, but we were working daily with them saying what reports do they want to see. So we will, whatever the director says is pertinent to
the administrator.
I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure that.
Yes, I apologize.
I didn't think Director Sanchez was
administrator.
This.
Whatever they feel is appropriate, we'll have all this data from the trips and we can consolidate it, do anything you want to see with it. And, you know, really what I think the big thing is, and the whole point of doing this is, does it increase the amount of trips? which I think we're going to be able to demonstrate it substantially does. What is the fair differential, idea of what, and will vary by time of day and season and everything else. Just whatever information. So we're working with the administrator's office on what the best reporting is, but we will be presenting that to you in the October meeting. And we could do a preliminary probably in the September meetings, a preliminary report.
Okay, yeah. If
And then
you extend it to October.
Right, but we would do a preliminary, but you're going to have 2.5 weeks worth of data. But we will be able to give that, but they will see it real time.
And will you be prepared to be watching it as it's coming in and making assessments?
Yes.
And
Curtis
let me,
Mill.
okay. Let me just ask why, I'll tell you why I'm asking. Sure. Such that, not suggesting it will be, but if it's a catastrophe at the September meeting, we could order it closed.
Absolutely. Yeah, I believe we can have a preliminary report as well. Curtis has been working with this daily and is on top of it.
So what are we changing? Right now, the order says September 1, 2025.
The request is that we move that to the October, to be sometime after the October meeting date, which is
21st.
Yeah, 21. So I think your suggestion is a couple of days after that, because you need to be able to shut it down.
Correct.
October 22nd is that Wednesday.
Oh, I'm in the wrong year. Look at that.
Still my.
I'm trying to make, time go faster than it should. 22nd. So I think, George, not to put words in your mouth, he would want to move it to close on October 24.
That would be a wonderful accommodation. And I can tell you, for 26 people.
You just barely enough.
I'm optimistic. I've only been here a short while. I'm still optimistic. We have 26 people between Uber, our technology staff, and Z-Trip staff that are working pretty much full-time on this project.
I have not to monopolize, but I have the $64,000 question, at least in my mind. Let us say on the 22nd, let's say we do extend it to the 22nd of October, and it's wildly successful, and we don't order it closed down on the 24th. How rapidly would other certificate holders be able to implement?
It has been our stated desire from day one that all 3,530 cabs in Las Vegas participate in this program, because that's what moves the needle.
That's right.
It's what I'm envisioning is that when the people in the neighborhoods all of a sudden know there's another 3,500 cars available, that the supply's there, those trips will boom, just like we saw when they made them available. When people know that when they have the ability to get a cab, and there's a article that just came out in the New York Times that maybe some of you saw, that the cases of sexual assault with Uber and Lyft drivers has been underreported. The fact that you can take a taxi cab through Uber, so you get the seamless convenience of paying with your credit card, you get all that, and know you have a licensed, vetted cab driver, I think we become the selection of choice. I think there is a real opportunity to make a huge difference in this market. And this is what we've seen in our other markets. But it only works if you have that massive amount of supply. My only fear in just saying, everybody come along, we're all on different technology now. And it has been a monster. And I think the director and Mr. Mel can tell you, we have worked tirelessly to put this together. And it didn't just start when we brought this up. We have been working on it in our other markets for months now. So it's not as easy as flipping a switch. And I know Curb does it in other markets, but there are some very unique things to the Las Vegas market, especially with employee drivers and things you have to work through. I want to see the whole industry on it as soon as possible, but at the same time, if you have 4 or 5 different technology platforms out there, we're all going to get painted with a negative brush if it's not perfect. So there are steps and all the compliance things that we've done, all the behind the scene works. I want to make sure that everybody does it. So once it gets going, it's not going to make a difference if there was a Z-Trip or a Yellow or a Lucky or a Nellis. It's going to be a bad program. And so I'm committed to, and that's why we've spent the time and resources we have today to make this work. So, but my goal is, and hopefully by the end of the year, everybody's on it. A lot of the airport issue, easier to approach that. But really, it's about the neighborhoods. It's about the true stakeholders, the people who live here, and getting them service, and the drivers themselves really improving their incomes.
So if I were to boil your answer down, it will depend on what technology platform each certificate holder wants to suggest it's going to use to replicate your platform.
Through the integration and this type of device and the signage.
But is that a proprietary, is that the only way to do it?
No,
Okay.
Curb's got one. Anybody can do it.
Okay.
And we are not taking our technology and not making it available to the other operators here. So they certainly, and that's a decision they have to make from a business decision, but we're not saying this is our toy box. This is all third-party software and hardware.
Questions?
Just out of curiosity, Mr. George, what time and date was the 15-minute gap that the 200 trip pops up?
2 o'clock on Monday afternoon. 2 o'clock on Monday afternoon.
Just curious if it was peaking.
So who knows what it'll be at 6 o'clock on a, so it was thrilling, a little panicked, but thrilling.
Anything else? Mr. George, council. Oh, I'm coming back to you.
Okay.
No, sir, not at this time.
Minister.
The only thing I have to say, sir, is the October meeting is the 15th. We contacted.
Oh, it's the 15th?
Yeah, we contacted, through text, we contacted our legal person and that's the 15th.
It is on the 15th.
Okay.
Well, that's even better. Fewer is less time. So I guess the request would be to move it to the 17th. Okay, well, I'll bring it back to the board then. I think it looks to me as though the compliance conditions, we have evidence that the compliance conditions have been addressed. If the way they have been addressed is to your satisfaction. Sounds like there may be good cause for us to extend the pilot from September 30th to October 17th, so that on the 15th we have robust information. With that, we could, I can suggest that we could take final action, entertain a motion to find the compliance items satisfied, extend the program from September 30th to October 17th, which would be an amendment of this order. But I think within fair intendment of compliance condition F, and allow the pilot program to proceed beginning September 1st, if that's the board's pleasure.
I will move to find the compliance item satisfied and expand the pilot program from September 1st to October 17th.
I'll second that motion. It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? My only discussion item is, Ms. Webb, you will prepare a final order. Okay. And between you and I, we need to do that relatively promptly because the public probably needs to know. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
In the words of one of my former law partners, don't screw it up.
That's all mine. I said, that's all mine. It's just rough.
That takes us to agenda item 7, which is a continued fiscal discussion. We did get some information from the administrator. Know if you want to make any affirmative statements.
Todd? Yes, sir. Thank you. I know that
Actually, we, I see Mr. Aguero is here, so I was waiting for that to happen. We're going to take a matter out of, order. Okay. Because Mr. Aguero has only got a short period of time to be with us. And we're only going to give him 3 minutes to talk anyway. So, yeah, we'll call item 8, which is public hearing on our annual review required under ordinance 706-8824, section 6 of existing rates. As the board may recall, time flies when you're having fun. Last year we did a general rate case, we reset rates. Mr. Rivero did a study we relied upon as evidence. We determined that having done that, we would, as we should have been all along, do annual resets or annual reviews of whether a reset is necessary under the statute, and that we would do so in March of each year. We've had a number of continuances of this matter, and Ms. Rushton and Mr. Rivero have some information they want to provide to us today, so take it away, Council.
Thank you. For the record, I am Kimberly Maxon Rushton with the law firm Cooper Levinson, appearing on behalf of the Livery Operators Association. Joining me today is the Principal of Applied Analysis, Mr. Jeremy Aguero, who most of the board are familiar with, mainly because of the fact that he is considered a financial expert in the state of Nevada and beyond, and also because of the fact that he's provided valuable information and resources to this board in helping you determine whether or not a rate case modification is necessary. As Chair Reeser noted, by statute, every year, this body is required to do an annual review of rates, fees, and charges charged by the taxi industry. And as you can imagine, over the years with different administrators and different boards, that process has taken on a multitude of review, I guess, mechanisms in how it's been handled, the timing of it, and the functionality of it. And so consistent with the regulatory review that this body has recently undergone and looked, that you did looking specifically at the regulations and whether or not they're still applicable, whether or not modifications needed to be made, the LOA decided that it was time to revisit the annual review and add some structure to it so that the industry as well as this body has the ability to objectively, on an annual basis, look at where the industry is from a fiscal perspective and thereafter determine whether or not a rate modification is necessary, and if so, at what level. And so with that in mind, we retained Applied Analysis to assist in developing what I would say in brief is a formula that this body can use on an annual basis, looking at, again, objective standards to determine where the industry is from a fiscal perspective. And so that is the starting point of the rate review for what I would say 2025 and before the TA. Before I turn it over to Mr. Aguero, one thing I would note, Chair Reeser, and this is based on a discussion with multiple industry members, is that as you consider going forward with your annual review over the next 12 months and thereafter, we would strongly recommend that you do it later in the year. The reason why is because the majority of the certificated carriers close their books at the end of the calendar year. They prepare their annual reports for your consideration in May. If you do it post-May or after that period, you clearly have a better indication as to where the industry operators are, what their changes they've experienced relative to increases in fees and price and other things such as perhaps increased ridership through the pilot program. And so, again, as we talk about the development of this formula, one thing I'd also ask that you consider is that we maintain a consistent review date going forward so that the industry knows what to expect and can be properly prepared. And with that, Chairman Reeser, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Aguero.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members. As I was preparing, well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's nice to see you again, and I appreciate giving me a leeway with the time a little bit. I know you have a very busy schedule. As Kimberly outlined, we were asked to do something fairly straightforward, and that was perhaps I should take half a step back before I take a step forward. We've gone through this process with this board on a number of occasions over the past 20 years in one way or another. And in almost every circumstance, it ends up the same way. There's been some extended period of time since rates were revisited. The things like inflation and cost of operations go up. A gap is created, and it seems like almost every time, I wouldn't say it's a crisis, but it's always a problem by the time we get here. We had this conversation, I don't know, about a year ago now. And the conversation was, could we create some type of formulaic approach where that challenge wouldn't exist, but rather the board could fulfill its statutory obligation to do a review while at the same time utilizing data that we have today that we didn't have 20 years ago relative to the changing cost in intra-city transportation, and use some index to essentially create an adjustment that would happen every year. Now, in order to do that, this was certainly relayed to me in no uncertain terms, there are certain things that you all have a responsibility to do. Evaluate whether it's appropriate in the public interest. Make sure that there is alignment between the cost of operations and the charges that are being provided. In the document that I can provide to you, if it hasn't already been provided to you, we just sort of outlined how that might potentially work. And how might it work? Each year, you could take a look at what that index has been modified. It would have a ceiling and a floor on it. No year could it go higher, at least as I drafted it, higher than 5% per year. No year could it go below zero, even if the index was negative. Each year, you all would have to make a determination to make sure that that is an appropriate thing to ultimately do. And then every 5 years, come back and do sort of a full assessment, a true up, if you will, relative to what those costs are and whether everything is still aligned. Certainly had periods in which we dealt with almost deflation. I think one of our first conversations, we were talking about a deflationary condition. And we've also had periods of, I wouldn't say hyperinflation, and we're not going back to the Carter administration, but periods in which inflation was higher than certainly that 5%, and that's reflected in increases in things like wages and salaries or the cost of all things that go out there. The idea was to create a mechanism by which there's a natural and predictable mathematical formula by which those adjustments can be made every year. So at least there's a starting point that says, okay, this is what that inflation has gone up. And then that mathematical formula would kick in, so long as the board did not say, hey, we think that there's an issue or there's something else we need to consider. And then there would be an automatic true up every 5 years after that, by which all of the financial information would be normally reviewed in the normal course. And again, what I want to emphasize is that this is a outline for consideration, that there are multiple ways in which this could be done. There are plenty of safeguards or protections that be put in both for the industry and for the consumer. But Mr. Chairman, the objective was to make sure that we perhaps don't run into some of the same challenges we've run into over the past 20 years, which is sometimes having to deal with a chasing of costs versus the charges that exist. So with that, I'm happy to talk through some of the statutory references, which I realize this group is probably well aware of, and the wonderful human being to my right can probably quote from memory. I'm happy to talk through how that math might work just as a matter of process. I'm happy to talk about some of the process in the true-up and how it might work here. And with that said, Mr. Chairman, the concept is exactly as I've laid it out, to sort of provide something that's, I would say, additive to your process today. And I'm happy to answer questions or dive in more deeply.
So, Ms. Rushton, I'm assuming that Mr. Aguero's recommendation is the one that's in the block indent quote.
Yes, sir. With respect to on June 30th of each year. Yes, sir.
Yeah, of your July 11 memorandum. So
That's correct.
we all have the benefit of that. So my suggestion is, let me first find out if we need to dive into it. I may have an unfair advantage having studied economics in my bachelor's. So, do you have the need for a deeper dive?
No.
Or do you have questions? No. Do you need a deeper dive, counsel?
I probably do. So your formula is in the citation in the first paragraph.
I don't have the benefit of.
Formula is this.
Yes, it is. It's the same as what's here. It's just in a different format.
So, do you have any? I can start.
Okay, well,
You're
you start.
thinking? Or are you ready?
Well, no, I mean, that's not a formula though. That's a structure. I get that. You every June want to adjust the rate. And you're going to tell us what the rate is. How are you determining what's the variables included in the rate?
I think that it depends on whether we're talking about the annual or we're talking about the 5-year term. So let's start with the annual.
I'm at the annual.
Yeah. So essentially, you would take all the components of the fee or those elements that you feel ought to be imposed in terms of the rate that's imposed, and you would take a look at the rate of inflation as published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics for the prior calendar year, so that you have enough time for the information to be there. You then change that index into a percentage, and you would apply that percentage to the rate. That percentage could be the change percentage could be no greater than 5% and no less than 0% for that year. And that would be the formula that would take place. You then do that for each of those 5 years. And then at year 5, you would have a formula that would be similar. However, it would be benchmarked against the same type of analytics that have been done previously, which are changes in the cost of labor, changes in the cost of materials, so forth and so on. So you make sure that the true up of the operations also is reflected.
So formula to me means A times X to the second power divided by blah, 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 means whatever. This sounds more like we're going to take the inflation, the CPI, basically, and then apply it with some variables, right? Who makes the determinative fact of this is what the CPI is for 2024, and we're going to either use that number or some other number?
Yeah, that would be the formula that I think that we're talking about. And I can put it in formulaic form and submit it if that's easier. The answer to that question is that the consumer price index is something that is produced every year by the federal government for all United States cities. It's combined. There's an element of that is specific to intrastate transportation, things like cabs, things like buses, and the like. Those data would be produced every year by the federal government and then would be utilized to make what it would be a baseline adjustment every year. The formula is not complicated, but nonetheless, you would essentially take the rates times the formula to get the adjusted rate for the following year.
And when we say the rate, we're talking about the drop rate.
That's correct, yes.
So, Mr.
Yeah.
So I guess this is a national CPI figure. And I think, at least in my personal opinion, and probably there are some economists that might agree with me, Las Vegas doesn't necessarily follow the national average. We kind of experience economic conditions in extremes. So I'm a little bit concerned that we're kind of using a national average to address our local problems when we know our local problems generally do not follow a national average.
Sure. May I address the?
Sure.
You're right. Unfortunately, there is no consumer price index for Las Vegas or Southern Nevada, for example. We can get information for Western cities, large cities, small cities, things along those lines. We also have the cost of living index, which is produced every quarter, although utilizing that for, which we can use specifically for the Las Vegas region, but utilizing that for the rate of inflation would be in some ways a misuse of those data. So we're always a little cautious, but we could certainly benchmark something against that, be sure. There is no doubt that Southern Nevada's economy is unique. Right? Our swings, 40 million visitors, we tend to be a harbinger when things are good, and we tend to be a harbinger when things are bad. But most of what we consume as residents of Southern Nevada are reflective of the prices that exist throughout the United States, right? When we go out to have a bite to eat, when we go buy a shirt, we buy something on Amazon, for that matter, right? We're dealing with most of the same price pressures that we get in headline inflation. If anything, I think the potential would be, if we look at the history between how prices have fluctuated in Southern Nevada, holding housing to the side for a moment, but if we look at how prices have fluctuated in Nevada, we would probably tend to underestimate by using the formula that's here as opposed to overestimate, but it would be substantially closer than what the process has been historically, where it just doesn't happen. If there came to be a better index, if there came to be more detailed information that was produced by the federal government, certainly you could bring that in and evaluate it. But as we sit here today, I would suggest that that index, or one like it, is probably as close as you're going to get. And while, as you said, a bit imperfect because you take a smaller geographic area, the fluctuations are probably going to be a bit more. I think you'd be surprised at how close it actually comes to how prices go up and down, just because so many prices are set nationally.
And the safety valve is the 5-year true up.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
In addition, Chair Reeser, it doesn't extinguish the ability of a member of the industry to bring an application to modify rates at any time. So if there were significant changes in market conditions, they could certainly use the application process to come in and say, in the interim, we need to see a modification to this point. And that is exactly what I think the industry does plan to do later this year, is that this was the first step. Let's develop, if possible, a formula that we can use automatically every year to give us an indication as to whether or not a rate increase is necessary. This year, because of the structure of this, we intend to, again, go back to Mr. Aguero and ask and provide our financials, and then to come back to you with a recommendation with possibly a rate modification. But going forward, the objective is that the industry doesn't have to do that. And like I said before, historically, you had financial analysts from the TA and other agencies doing the analysis and then coming out and saying, okay, well, we don't need to modify any of the rates. And then you'd have the industry saying, well, we believe that we do based on our annual reports and the increases in these costs and expenses. So as to avoid that, we think that the formula gives you a good opportunity or a gauge in which to evaluate things, like I said, from a fiscal perspective, and then to make that determination, but not to exceed the 5%. And if we feel like it is necessary to go beyond that, or perhaps to make other changes to things such as the zone rates, that's a separate application that we're always authorized to bring.
So I have a few kind of drill down questions. Why the floor of 0? And the reason I say that is we have seen, for instance, the Public Utilities Commission actually reduce most recently Southwest gas rate, because the cost of natural gas had significantly fallen over the previous 3-year rate period. So there can be negative rates, and I'm wondering what your thought process was in setting that floor. And the context of my concern is that there could be a dramatic, if we were in a deflationary cycle, or there was some major input to the business of running a taxi cab company that was dropping for some reason dramatically, you could at the end of the 5-year true-up period have a significant adjustment that could adversely affect cash flow. Unless I'm missing something.
Mr. Chairman, you're not missing anything. It's an excellent question. The reason for creating the ceiling and the floor at 5% and 0% is to have what we believe to be the normal range of growth. There are going to be periods when it's outside the high end. There are going to be periods where we will, and I believe in our lifetimes, deal with multiple periods of deflationary conditions. The idea is not that the formula doesn't address these or ignores these conditions. It simply prompts a discussion needs to be had at the point where it goes beneath that level. That could certainly happen. It could happen every year. It could happen in the interim. If that were to happen at the high end of the spectrum or the low end of the spectrum, outside of a standard deviation of what is normal rates of inflation, it would merely prompt a conversation among the board relative to, okay, we've seen these type of things come down. The other part that I would suggest, you brought up the true-up, which I think is a very important element of that. But the other part, it would also bring to the board's attention. I mean, the inflation could come back at a negative number. That would come before you. You would see it. It would set to 0. And if all of a sudden, to your point, it was minus 10%, I would imagine that would prompt a conversation among the industry. Lord knows at that point, we probably have a different set of problems that we're dealing with in our community. But at that point, it would also prompt the conversation by saying, hey, look, we've identified this. This change has been significant and negative, and we ought to have a conversation about where it ought to land. And I would just respectively submit, if it came in at plus 10% and you saw that, you would probably prompt a similar conversation.
So you're welcome to respond, but this comment's mainly to my colleagues. I think wherever in here it says we shall do something, we would want to change that to may. And the reason I say that is I don't think that we can give over to, we have a obligation to look at the rate changes and finally say yes or no, it's not in the public interest. And if we were to put in shall, I think there's an argument we've limited ourselves in exercising that. So one of the ways to handle that is it shall occur unless before June 30th, we take some action to cause it not to happen. If we wanted it to be automatic, or we could just say we're going to have to implement. Oh. And I see that either way, we would be preserving our discretion.
And I would echo that. I think this is a great baseline proposal for the industry when presenting a requested rate change or during our annual review. I think it's a great baseline and I appreciate it. It's an easy way to understand. But I don't think anybody, and I think we should make clear, as the chair did, that anybody's intending to bind the board to this process to the exclusion of experiential data that the companies might want to present. Right. So I think that's a very good point. Appreciate the baseline. It's a really good way to start the conversation, but we should make it clear that we're not intending to bind the board to this process.
Unfair question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you have any, based on the fact that you are much closer to what might be happening in this respect, do you have any inclination that the Transportation Consumer Price Index might be among the statistics that the federal government is considering eliminating, playing with? Or is this something that's been around for a long time and is pretty widely used by the industry? If you have any.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that I can opine in terms of what the federal government is going to do relative to any set of data. But the consumer price index is something that is closely monitored, not only by this industry, but by other industries, and of course, the Federal Reserve, in terms of its monetary policy. And it's, I would be very surprised if it was augmented.
And that, my question was more to this specific sub-index.
Yeah.
Do you know if it's widely used by the industry or not?
I don't know that I could say whether it's widely used by industry. I can tell you that it is referenced in a fair number of places.
Well, cut to the chase. The Public Utilities Commission, as an example, with prodding from the legislature, not prodding, direction from the legislature, is required to do general rate cases on 3-year cycles. Is there any magic between 3 and 5 in your view?
I don't think that there is.
So the true up could be every 3 years as opposed to 5.
And there are examples across the board. You take property taxes, for example, right? It's a great example, something that we do every year in most counties in the state of Nevada. I suppose the reason that I did that, Mr. Chairman, which may not be very scientific, is that just seems to be the cycle that we've kind of been on historically. And so I used that, which I realize as I say it out loud is probably not the, a sort of a very scientific reason to do that.
We're just trying to get away from that bad habit.
Yes,
sir. Any other questions?
Well, this might be a elementary question, but is there any action item being requested currently related to this?
Well, we could, the way it's agendized, we could take action to accept the proposed rate case formula. I have unfortunately a more thorny question for Dag, really.
Thorny question, sounds good.
This appears to me to be a rule of general applicability to an industry. And in other contexts, and you may not be able to answer it today, we may have to take this under advisement. I think in other contexts, for other agencies, this could not be adopted by an order. It would have to be a regulation. And I'm wondering if you have a view on that or if we need to look at that.
My view would be that, yeah, that sounds correct to me, but yeah, I would like to look into it further.
Okay.
And Chair Reeser, if I could respond. As you know, statutorily, you're required to do a review of rates. What the proposal is that as part of your review of rates, that this is what you adopt as the board as your baseline standard. So it's not one, I think, that would require a regulatory amendment or to be placed in regulation. We can certainly move in that direction. But our position is that when you do your rates, this is what you're pronouncing to the industry as to where you'll start your review. It'll be on June 30th. You'll look at the consumer price index. You'll have a formula, and then you'll present that. And then perhaps at the July agenda or the August, whatever the purview of the board is, the industry will come in, having reviewed those rates, and then make the request as to whether or not we think that there should be a rate adjustment. Or one of the discussion points that we've had is that this be automatic. And so if it's going to be automatic, then I think we could certainly move to a position whereby, again, under your statutory authority relative to the review of rates, that you say that at your July agenda meeting, this will be what is put out there or determined based on the consumer price index and where you think that the rate adjustment should be made. and it would be open dialogue and an opportunity for members of the industry and for staff to present their positions.
So Ms. Rushton, I'm always sympathetic to doing something by an order as opposed to rulemaking. This one does trouble me. And I think we need to give some thought as to, and I get your argument, but your argument, I think, almost goes to saying we may have to do it by rule if it's going to be something that we do year in, year out in some automatic formula way. Outside the context of this particular matter, Ms. Webb and I are having continuing fun with LCB over the fact that we're out over our skis sometimes with my use of orders as opposed to regulations. I'm mindful that we need to make sure what we adopt is in the right form to navigate that. I, as one member, would like a rule or a practice where, unless I stop it, it happens. And then I true it up every 3 years. That's just my personal view. It gives certainty to the industry. It gives administrative convenience to the regulator. So I see all kinds of reasons to do that. But I'm also thinking before I go down that road, that Freely needs to make sure that the next shoe that drops is not a lawsuit.
And I agree. I mean, we've had issues that this board has recently discussed relative to old policies that were codified and practiced and everything, but never specifically codified by regulation or statute. And now we've had to come back and explain why they were important then and not now. I construe this as a standard. You have the obligation to review it. The board is now adopting this as their standard for the initial review of rates. But however, again, legally, we need to do that. We can certainly work with counsel and come back to you. What we wanted to do today was to take the opportunity to say that we think that the rate review should be more standardized, have more structure to it, and be done on an annual basis post June 1st. We wanted Mr. Aguero to explain to you how we could do that and measure it in an objective way that we could utilize every year thereafter. But again, it's an open discussion, and we want to ensure that it's one that works not only for the industry, but also for the authority board and the agency.
I, for one, am attracted to this. It's very similar to a process that we use in front of the Public Utilities Commission, where between rate cases, you go in and file an advice letter and say, I told you I was going to build that transmission line for X, but now I have to get all of the, I have to have some earth moving equipment, and it's coming from China, and now the cost is the tariff. So I need you to give me rate relief now, or I can't build the transmission line. And the commission, the Public Utilities. So this is a kind of a way of handling that same process more gracefully. So I personally am enamored with it. I just want to make sure we cross our I's and dot our T's here. That was intentional. My recommendation to the board, and thank you very much for your time and this submission. My recommendation to the board is that we subject to this web telling me I can't do this, I would continue this till the October meeting. September's going to be fun already, such that we can get guidance from that. on this.
That'll give us time, Chair, if they believe that we need to make more specific filings or do it in a different procedural way, we can do it. The other thing I was going to ask is, I wanted to request that you keep this application process open so that carriers could submit applications to modify the rates if they feel like it's necessary. So as part of the ongoing discussion about their annual reviews, by keeping it open, not only can we facilitate more information relative to the formula, how it is best presented and codified for the board going forward, but also if we leave it open, it allows individuals from the industry to submit requests for modifications if they believe it's necessary.
Provided that would be done in the context of an annual review applicable to all
Yes,
carriers.
sir.
Yeah. Or one board members thought, or we figure out how we adopt this, and then the annual review for 2025 is there.
Mr. Shaw, I think this is a great guide. I'm not opposed to the process. I think it's a great way to start the conversation. But I am not for adopting this as a binding way to review rates. There's a couple arguments. One is that if the legislature wanted us to do it that way, they would have said it. What they said was that annually the authority should review rates. The NAC specifically exists for us to prescribe how that will be done. Without having this in the NAC, we are prescribing that future boards do it this way. I think it's a great guide, but I don't think it's the only way it could ever be done and should ever be done, absent, a carrier's unique position at any given time while these rates are being reviewed. So I agree with you. That's kind of what you said, but I think before we look for ways to prescribe this in regulation or by order or however else, we probably need to consider if this is the only way we want it done and how that language might be.
Don't disagree with that observation. I think we first need to know what we can do at all without a rule, without a rulemaking. What are the parameters? Because with all due respect to me, this looks like a regulation because we're now, and I make this argument in court all the time when agencies don't do the right thing. We're now saying how we're going to interpret that statute and apply it. And that's a quintessential checker cab case where the Public Service Commission was slapped down in 1978 or whatever it was, so 78 or 82. So anyway, I'll leave that to you. I'm happy to discuss further offline, but I would still entertain pushing it out so we can get the report back from the AG's office in October. That would be my ask for a motion.
Which I predict will say that we need regulation.
Yeah.
So I think that it's very clear it would need a regulation absent an AG review.
Are you opposed to this being on the October agenda?
For what purpose?
To get a report back from the AG's office as to what we can or can't do.
If the AG's office says that it needs a regulation, are we intending to pursue one?
I think that's why I want to keep the discussion.
Okay.
On the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to look at
option to. The other option is to conclude that we have to do something with regard to the annual review. So what are we going to do as to the annual review? Yes, sir.
Isn't this an annual review?
Yeah, I think
We've looked at it, we've decided it. What's the intracity sub-index for 2024?
No, I did not. Oh, sorry, Mr. Chairman. I didn't calculate it.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
so if there would have been that, then we could have said that this is our, because that's all that the statute says. The statute says we have to do an annual review. Doesn't say we have to take action.
Is there opposition to continuing the matter?
well, I No, but is there a proposition, what's the proposition to continue? So have we reviewed rates sufficiently this year to the point where we think we can check the box and move on? Or do we think that there's still a deficit or some kind of adjustment to be
I don't
made?
think we have evidence in front of us one way or the other.
And that's kind of where I was
Yeah,
going,
right.
is like, have we, because this has been on once or twice, we've definitely talked about it. And I guess what I would say is that if we do kick it over to October, then we have some discussion of those, or, not even that Mr.
Just
Aguirre
what's
needs
the
to
number?
be, Guerrero needs to be, or just a number.
Well, I would make what might be a radical proposal and say that if we don't have evidence that rates need to be adjusted one way or another, we close the rate hearing and look at it next year.
And do that now or in October?
Well, I don't think we need to leave it open for the AG to come back and decide whether we need a regulation. I think we could close the rate hearing. I don't think there's a carrier that's proposing. We have no evidence that rates need to be adjusted. In my opinion, if we do this every year, that answers itself. We've looked at the rates are fine, we haven't adjusted them, and we move on. That would be my proposal.
And then after we get the AG, I just want to flesh out what you're saying, that after we get the AG's guidance, we can put a matter back on the agenda as to what we're going to do or not do.
Right, because a separate discussion would be, do we want to augment our annual rate hearings in the future with a formula that needs to be in regulation, right? Which has nothing to do with today's hearing, do rates need to be adjusted, right?
And if we close it today and don't continue it, that still gives the LOA the opportunity to file an application between now and October, and then we include the intracity sub-index number.
Or any individual carrier. So
Yes.
the LOA.
Yeah, or individual, sorry.
And again, the objective today was to bring this before the board to see if there was an appetite for, again, adding more structure to the review process and having more objective factors to look at so that it could be an automatic determination without the obligation to do an exhaustive analysis by any of the carriers or by your staff. So knowing that there's an interest in it, there's no objection to meeting with the Attorney General and Council and bringing it back as a proposed regulation or in other procedural, manner that they believe is effective. And then thereafter, Member Decker, consistent with what the discussion has been, that we close the rate case and then we'll bring back an application based on the financial expertise and specifics that we can provide as to whether or not we think that there should be an increase. You've heard discussion by our board members about the fact that the agency needs assistance. We want to look at all those factors. We also want to look at the factor about the zone rates. So again, today's discussion was really a starting point as to whether or not there is an appetite by the board to look at a more objective structure for doing the rate reviews and to set a time as to when that would be done. If that needs to be done by regulation, I can put that into a regulatory request or workshop request and go from there.
So it sounds like the two board members on my right are prepared to make a motion. Perhaps.
Sounds like JD is.
I move that we completed our annual rate review and no adjustment is proposed.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Did you have some further discussion?
I just don't want to foreclose the annual rate review because let me ask a question, a procedural question, Mr. Chairman. If we do make that determination, are we foreclosing an application by a medallion holder to say we were asking for a rate increase?
No.
Okay.
We're just completing our statutory obligation to conduct an annual review. I think that's the point of the motion, which is, okay, we've done our annual review and we haven't received any evidence that anybody needs rate relief. And this is a useful tool that's been given to us that we have to consider how we could use.
Okay.
So,
That answers my question.
any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
As always, thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much. And we'll give you back 10 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
Now we will return to, does anybody need a break?
Yes.
Okay, yes, we will take a break. Is 5 minutes enough?
Yes.
Okay, we'll take a break till 11:40.
You got it. You got it.
Oh, okay.
Hey, yes.